All right, good afternoon. Today marks day 3 of Foundations of Programming. Before we begin the class, I would like to open up the floor for anybody that wants to present their assignment from yesterday. If anyone got the opportunity to continue working on it or build upon what they had yesterday. Besides Michael, because he already presented for like 15 minutes. Or Mikhail, my apologies. Anybody? No one was able to? It's okay. Uh, I do understand we all have busy schedules, so it's no biggie. All right. Um, we're going to continue, and then after completing what you call it, today's lesson, and we move on into APIs, we'll take a small uh break to kind of cover anything that you guys might have questions on, or you want me to recap before we even move on to anything bigger. I think it's important to kind of reset that learning curve and just touch up on anything that you guys might have already brained up by now, which is completely okay. It happens. Um, so let me go ahead and share my screen. So last night we ended off working on the bad calculator HTML. This was supposed to be somewhat of your end product. Some of you guys might have accomplished it. Some of you guys might not. The biggest trend I saw from bouncing around the rooms and helping you guys individually seemed to be, you being overwhelmed with what had to be done. All right, and the biggest tip I can give you guys is to, for one, do not overthink it, and break it off into smaller, digestible parts. Right. I know, the bad calculator itself. It was, we had three numbers. Two of them did addition, one did subtraction. And you didn't know where to start. Like you saw this and you kind of just like lost it, like, oh no, like this is too much. Uh, but the way I would have tackled it would be to kind of just give you a layout. I would redo this, get all numbers from 0 to 9, the plus, minus, multiplication, division, kind of get you a layout so you can visualize what you're doing. And then take it step by step. First things first, let's actually make sure our buttons, are working from 0 to 9, like, our functions and whatnot, and the on clicks, and make sure that it's actually displaying something. And once you're able to actually display, as I discussed yesterday, where how does the calculator work? You press a button and you see on display, and you keep pressing it, and it keeps adding numbers until you decide to do some form of arithmetic with it. And then that should have been like your first step. And then from there, you should, at least tackle one function, which could have been like the addition. And once you're, 100% this is working, you got it to where you want it to go, then you can slowly start building off of it. Don't try to target the 300-meter targets before you even engage the 25 meters and 50-meter targets. All right. That's the best way I can explain it. Just think about it that way. But yeah, so that should have been the yesterday assignment. Today we're gonna be doing, and it's gonna be the last one for this lesson too. It's gonna be day of the week. So there's kind of like a trend when it comes to software development. One of your first two programs that you guys kind of like most people start off with is like building a calculator or a to-do list type or something around those terms. And this is another very simple program that you guys are going to be working on today. Let's go ahead and open it up. Should be in lesson 4, day of the week. So we go to the HTML file. Let's open this in live server. And we see a very simple page here with what looks like an H1, asking you what is today. And then we see an input and a label. I know we didn't discuss labels yet, but when working with your input tags, you typically want to have something to label it or have it like next to describe what the input should have. And we can see that here between line 21 and 24. It's all within a form tag, right? Because it's collecting input from the user. And then within this form tag, we have a label tag and an input tag. The input tag is pretty straightforward, kind of like I showed you guys before. We see something new here called placeholder, which uh, it has the text day of the week. And if you look back to the uh, the document, it's what's inside the input box, right? So you're able to manipulate what kind of, in gray in the background uh, takes place in that location for your users. To the left that we have the day of the week, which is represented here by the label. The input inside of it, day of the week. They put a space to kind of give the box and the label itself some room in the actual document. And then we look here, we also have the for attribute, and it's essentially kind of linking it to the input tag, right? The input tag has an ID of day, and then when they created this label, they gave it like the for and assigned it to the same ID that the input tag has. All right, pretty straightforward. We also see the type here is text. As you guys remember, we can change the type of this uh, of the input tag and change what type of input it is. All right, so that's where the text is coming from. Let's put that bad boy back. Outside of the form, we have a button, type button with the ID of check and the name of button. So let's see how this actually works in our JavaScript. Let me put this side by side. So what is the day? What is the day? Day of the week. If we look back to our HTML, it wants us to complete a small application that lets the user know if they inputted a weekday, weekend, or they gave an incorrect day of the week. Make sure your application is case sensitive, as so Saturday is treated the same as all caps Saturday, or as you see here, kind of all random lowercase and capitalization. Now, what does it do right now? Look at the JavaScript. We're on JavaScript. We have what we've seen before already, the query selector, and it's grabbing an ID, right? Because the hashtag called check, that is the button that we see here. So it's selecting the button and it's adding an event listener. The event that's listening for is going to be the click. And upon clicking that button, we're going to run the function check day. And then looking down at the function, we initialize a variable called day. And within that variable, we're grabbing an ID day, which is the input. And we're grabbing the value, right? So far, that's all it has. I don't think it's going to do anything right now. Yeah, so it's not doing anything. We have no logic here. But right here at the end of line 5, where it says dot value, right? It's going to change the value of whatever. It's going to grab the value of what's being put into this input tag and is saving it into this new variable called date. And then from there, you have to do something with it, right? So back to the assignment at hand, you're going to be able to input a former day like Monday. And once you put it in there, regardless on capitalization, you should be able to put check, and then it'll tell you whether it's a weekday, weekend, or it's an invalid date, right? So we will start off the assignment with that today. I'm gonna go ahead and pause recording. Did it go pretty good? Cody, you're smiling as if like, no, I did not.
No, we got it with like 8 seconds left. I was like, that good work, guys. Like
Okay.
literally tested it. So yeah, it went well.
Yeah, we'll do a small walkthrough. I'll go through myself, and then you guys can demonstrate what you guys were able to come up with. And if you guys made it pretty or something. But just for the sake of having some kind of footage for other people who are viewing this and not present here. All right, so what are they doing? Yeah, so we're gonna start with what do you have? Or I delete all the context here. All right, so we had const stay is equal to. Do we have query here? I deleted all this by accident.
I don't think you're sharing your screen. If you are, I'm not seeing it.
Oh, my bad. Okay, give me a second. All right, can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
All right, so we were back here. This is the default that we had. Let me see the chat. Eric, you said you need to reset your Zoom. That's fine. So we had a small little boilerplate right here where we had a variable called day that was grabbing the value out of our input tag, right? So what I like to do is I like to ensure that my buttons are working, right? So um, we have the value, we have the click, and we're not doing anything once we grab the value. So how about we do something with it? When we go back to the HTML tag, we see that after the button, there is an H2 tag here, and there's nothing within it, right? It's an empty H2 tag, and we see the ID, it says place to see. It's kind of like a little hint to you guys to know where you want to put like the output of your result. So we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna grab the H2 tag, and we're gonna want to manipulate it with the input that we're receiving from the input tag. So going back to our JavaScript, we'll say let's say const uh, display is equal to document dot query selector, right? And then we want to grab that ID, which was an H2 with the ID of place to see. And then we want to grab, we want to be able to manipulate what's inside this tag. So what command do we use for that again? Good job. Inner text, right? We're going to use inner text to manipulate what's inside of here. And then actually, let's remove this display. We don't have to assign it to anything. We can use document.query selector places C. Inner text is equal to whatever they gives us. And just that itself should be able to show us some form of output, right? Before the H2 tag was empty, so it didn't show anything. But the moment we added line 6, we now gave that tag a new value with inner text inside of it with whatever we receive back from the input tag, right? We got that value here on line 5 and then assign it to the H2 tag. Well, now we know it's working, right? Whatever we put in here, it's gonna work, right? It's doing what we want it to do. But that's not the function we want, right? We want to ensure that we can put in weekday or weekends and then check it whether it's valid or not. So between here, we can do something like const weekday is equal to Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. All right. Doesn't really matter if it's capitalized or not right now, so it's all good. And then we could do one for weekend, which will be Saturday and Sunday. All right, so we know we have something to compare it to, weekday and weekend. And then we're gonna want to, after we receive the value from the input tag, we want to check it, right? So we can do for, or no, we won't do for. If weekday dot includes, right? If it includes whatever we get back from day, and then we're gonna do two lowercase to be able to have it no matter whatever the user puts in there, whether he capitalizes it or he, decides to put every other letter capitalized or lowercase, decides to do like some weird stuff, like camel case. We're able to format it to whatever we need to check it with. So we'll do two lowercase. So if weekday dot includes day dot to lowercase, essentially we grab the input, we format it for what we want, and then we're going to check if it's inside weekday. Then we want to do something. All right, we can just do something as simple as console.log weekday, right? So we want to see if it's working out. Then we can do else if weekend dot includes day dot to lowercase console.log weekend, else console.log invalid day, right? So let's check it out. So we put in Monday, we check it. So far it's still tied in with our H2 tag, but we can also see here, it's printing out we want, whether it's weekday or weekend. Let's check out Sunday, weekend, and let's check out if they do some weird stuff. It still triggers it as weekend. We see here the value of weekend went up to 2. That means it printed out another thing in our console saying that it was the weekend. Now, what if we put February invalid date? Awesome. So it's doing what we want. And then the only difference, or the only thing we have left to change here would be to do something like let result equal to an empty string. And then we can say result is equal to weekday. And we can do the same thing over here. Result is equal to weekend, or result is equal to invalid date. All right, I thought I heard my dog chewing something. Now let's check it out. Go to Monday. Cool. Sunday. That didn't give us what we wanted.
Looks
Oh, my
like you
bad.
just have to change. Yeah.
Yep. We want to change what the H2 tag takes, and we want to change it to result. So weekday, cool. Sunday, weekend, and then February, invalid date. Awesome. Pretty straightforward. That took like 8 minutes. Who had a different way of going about it? Did someone not use like an array? Did someone use like a dictionary, or something a little bit more complex that they want to show us of what their thought process was? It's okay. Don't be shy. We're all here to learn. So someone, I encourage it. Demonstrate, please. No, Cody, want to show what you got?
It's on Mikhail's computer. We pretty much did exactly what you did, except we had just a constant days that had all 7 days of the week. And then our compare function just compared, the index for the weekend. And then we had a nested if to compare for the index for the days, else it would have been invalid date. So pretty much did, and actually we created one more
Let's see it.
constant for the result.
I'm hearing the explanation, but I'd like to see the code.
Yeah.
Mikhail?
All right. Hey, Mikhail, you want to pull that up?
You guys see it?
Yep, we got you.
Yeah, so like you said, we have we call that results right here. So where the H2 was, the result. And then we had a constant, an array, days of the week. And we didn't separate the days of the week from weekday to weekend like you did. And in the check day, we put the value to lowercase, the value that we would get from the input right here. We put it to lowercase, and then we logged it, and then we do these nested if statements. So the first thing we did was to check if our input is inside the days of the week array. And if it wasn't inside the days of the week array, so we would know that it was an invalid day. And the emit didn't suggest inner text, so I was just going fast and did an inner HTML. And for the inner HTML, I just did a template literal and just did some HTML code right here, and it will just print out incorrect week. So if I open it up, let's put it in there, just say incorrect day of the week, like that. So we checked if it's included in the week, and then after it passes, so if the day we inputted is inside this array, we then went again to check if it's either Sunday or Saturday. And now I put my array, I did the index, so days of the week at index 0, which is the first entry into the array, which would be Sunday. And I said, or if the day is equal to days of the week at index 6, which is Saturday. If either of these are true, then we know that it's the weekend. So we take the results in our HTML again, with some HTML via template literal. And if it's not Sunday or Saturday, that means it's just a regular weekday. So that's how we do it. So we did Saturday, let's say weekend, Monday, let's say weekday.
Sweet, man. That is awesome. Thank you for the demonstration.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you guys get to see two different ways of doing it. Very similar, but hopefully that helped. Any questions before we move on? No? Okay. Let's go back. So that concludes the lesson 4 of adding JavaScript, right? That gives you a good idea of how, linking your JavaScript and how it affects your HTML document and how to manipulate it, making it so you can actually do stuff besides just being an empty skeleton and the skin itself. Before we move on to our next lesson, does anyone have anything they would like to talk about more? Maybe it just didn't sit, or solidify with them right the first time around. Something that you guys like to recap?
So, question. Coming out of this class and going into the actual full stack immersive, are like from this right here, are we supposed to get how to actually, like, if you gave us a project right now, how to actually code out the JavaScript for like a project and everything, or are we supposed to just kind of get like a basic overview gist from this right now? Because like right now, I still don't really know a whole lot about like query selector or using JavaScript in the DOM. I kind of have like a simple understanding, like a basic, but if you ask me to do like my own project like this, I probably wouldn't be able to.
That is a great question. Thank you, Joseph, for that. So the best way I can explain it is it's in the name of the course that you guys are currently in. All right, foundations of programming. The main point of of these 4 weeks is to give you guys the foundation prior to beginning the immersive full stack program. Because when you guys go into the full stack immersive program, it's going to be a fire hose of information, like nothing compared to what we're doing now. All right, it's going to be a lot. On top of that, it's going to be significantly much harder than the stuff that we are doing now. You're going to be taught everything from the ground up, very similar to how we are doing now. But the leg up that you guys are going to have is the fact that this will not be the first time that you guys see it. So when you guys get to the full stack immersive program and they give you all this information, you're not, conflicted trying to understand everything because you already have a baseline established prior to arriving to the full stack immersive program. So upon finishing FOP and starting the immersive program, no, you will not be able to do a full project from start to finish. I mean, you can do small stuff, right? Like you saw here, but this isn't, a full application, right? This isn't sexy. No one's gonna use this little program that we just created. But that's not the intent of FOP. The intent of FOP was to, give you guys a foundation and in turn also increase the success rate of our students when attending the full stack immersive program. Specifically week, let's see, 2 and 3, which are going to be the heaviest of all the weeks. It's meant to assist you with the first month of the immersion program, because one of the biggest gates that you guys will have to go through in the program will be the one of the assessments, which is object-oriented programming, and it's probably the one that the students struggle with the most. After you get through that, it's pretty funny too, because like the first assessment, after you get through that assessment, the other ones are doable. They're still tough, right? But the first one, it seems to be like the biggest one that the students have issues with. They seem to get stuck the most. The ones that require the most assistance from the TAs and instructors for more one-on-one teaching, a lot of debugging. When I went through the full stack immersive program, and I went to the first assessment, they give it to you on a Friday, and it's due by Monday morning at 9 p.m. I'm sorry, 9 a.m. I submitted my assessment the night prior, and I had to redo I did the assessment twice because I got through it completely all the way through. And unfortunately, I did it the wrong way. I didn't understand the instructions, and I messed up the entire assessment. I requested the assistance from a TA. He was looking at my code, and he was assisting me with debugging it. He was telling me, you don't need this, change this, yada yada. So I'm going through my code and deleting all this stuff. And unfortunately, he had to step away. He had something come up, and he had to leave. Halfway through assisting movement, and I just deleted like half my code, so nothing worked. Right? And you have to pass so many tests. So whenever you create your assessments or you're going to do assessments, there are going to be some tests you have to run your code through, and you have to pass all these tests. I believe there's like 23 tests that my code had to pass. When he assisted me, I was passing like 12. When he left, I passed like 2. So it was tough. So I went back, I just deleted everything. I recloned my assessment, and I just started from scratch. Because whatever I did was not working, and then afterwards it definitely was not working. But that's how tough it was. Like, I struggled with it. He was helping me decode this on Sunday afternoon. I had to restart and redo it, and I finished Sunday night. Barely submitted it. I didn't pass all my tests, but you only have to pass so many, which I believe was like 16 out of the 23, somewhere along those lines. I passed like 17, I think. But it's a hard assessment, right? And what I didn't have, I didn't go through the FOP program. Unfortunately, my chain of command was being very difficult, and they didn't want to allocate me the time to go through that. Even though I was like on my way out, somehow they still wanted to milk me for everything I had. And I didn't have the opportunity you guys did. So whenever I was seeing all this, all this information, it was brand new to me. So unlike the other students who had gone through the FOP program and they, it wasn't the first time seeing it, they were able to focus on the much more difficult stuff. Meanwhile, I was still trying to figure out how to do the more basic things, right? What you guys are doing now. But because you're going through the FOP program, when you do get to the immersive program, you will have more time because you don't have to focus on, the mundane parts of the code. You can focus on the more heavily focused items that are being taught to you guys, right? So if you feel like you're struggling or you're not understanding it well, if you feel like, you're not up to par, or even the terminal or VS Code still seems very foreign to you and you're having difficulty trying to understand it, that is okay. Even if if you're in the immersive program and it still feels that way, that's still okay. But you will at least have 4 weeks of already been doing this, of exposure, that you're gonna feel a lot more comfortable than I did. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
No problem. Anybody else? No? No one wants to retouch about anything? You guys are good for now? We're good to move forward? What's up, Eric? You unmute your mic. You want to say something?
Well, yeah, it's not a question. I was just gonna say, kind of the way I got into programming was like really focused on front end first stuff. So, I think I focused too much in that, and there is benefit to going fast because, I mean, like looking at this code, the JavaScript we're just working on, when you start learning object-oriented programming, like that will actually help your understanding of the stuff that we've already covered quickly. So there is benefit to kind of going fast. So you don't start spinning your wheels, kind of like I did, trying to understand things that maybe if you had more context to the bigger picture, it would just make it easier. So there's value in going fast as well.
If you're struggling with the stuff that we're doing now, like the front end, don't struggle too much. There is a front end assessment. It says my internet is unstable. Can you guys hear me?
You're in and out.
Okay. Let me know if I'm good before I continue.
Yeah, you're good right now.
Yeah, so you will retouch this up. You're guys gonna hit JavaScript. Actually, you won't hit JavaScript. You're gonna hit Python. That's gonna be one of the first things you're gonna hit. Which will lead into object-oriented programming, which will be your assessment within the after 2 weeks, I believe. And then you guys will hit databases, which will be the next 2 weeks. And then you hit React, which is the framework that you guys will be using to work on the front end, right? Your projects are not just going to be plain JavaScript like you're doing now. Your front end assessment will be consisting of using the React framework, which doesn't use JavaScript. I mean, it does, but it's JSX, if that makes sense. It's a combination of JavaScript and HTML combined together. And it'll make more sense once you get into the program. But this is enough to get you an understanding of what JavaScript is doing. So when you get into working with React, it'll make more sense. So don't worry too much about it right now. What you should be thinking about is like just understanding what the JavaScript is doing, the relationship between JavaScript and HTML, and how it works. So when you get into React in the immersive program, it's a lot simpler to understand, right? At least for people like me that didn't know this, like I overthink stuff, so I want answers like, why is it doing that? And the instructor's like, well, that's just how it works. I'm like, but why? And those are the questions I had, which are out of scope, but I was struggling with trying to understand like basic concepts because I wanted to know why was this doing what it was doing. And you don't always have to understand why your computer does something. Just know of how it works, right? Of like, if that makes sense, right? But yeah, so you will do a smaller project while you're in FOP for the object-oriented program. I developed it last class we did. We'll get into object-oriented program. You'll do some basic stuff, and then to finish it off, we're gonna build a small game. If you guys are familiar with Space Invaders, like the old retro spaceship that shoots at aliens, you guys will complete that during FOP. So object-oriented programming won't just be some code that you get to see like on your screen where it's very plain. You'll actually get to see some cool images and be able to make a flying spaceship that shoots at aliens that die. Cool. Awesome. We'll keep moving forward. So that concludes lesson 4. Before we continue, it is 6:26, so we are going to take a 10-minute break. 6:27 now. Come back at 6:37, and then we'll begin the next lesson. All right, so welcome back. We're going to go ahead and continue with today's lecture. So that concluded adding JavaScript. Next, we'll be working with APIs. Who here is familiar with APIs?
Vaguely.
Vaguely. Okay. So we're going to use some very simple APIs, nothing to get you too confused. There's hundreds, if not thousands of APIs out there. Actually, if not millions, of all types of APIs. Some more complex than others. The ones that we're going to be working with here are going to be very simple, just so you guys get an idea of how they work. What are APIs? APIs are a simple interface for some complex action, right? I want you guys to think of APIs in the sense of a menu, right? So when you guys go to the restaurant, let's say Texas Roadhouse, and you're presented with a menu, you choose what you want, right? I want this, 6-ounce steak because I'm on a budget, and you don't know how it works, right? How it was cooked or whatnot, but you give your order, and someone somewhere cooks it up for you, grabs it, and delivers it to you. You don't know how it works, but in the midst of your order, you give them certain descriptions of how you want it. I want, this 6-ounce steak cooked medium rare, with, loaded mashed potatoes, yada yada, and some garlic shrimp. Right? You essentially tell your waiter exactly what your order is going to be, and then they take it to the back, do their magic, and then bring it back to you once it's done. And that's pretty much what APIs are doing for you. But in the sense for you guys, the way that you should think of it should be almost like a URL. All right. So it lets you communicate, put in a request of something that you want, and then it's brought to you depending on the parameters that you give it. Right. So an API essentially is just a small interface that allows you to give it some form of input, typically a URL, which would take certain parameters. If it was, for example, I've used the Spotify API. If you want to grab a song, you give it genre, artists. They have, like ratings, like popularity. It takes the parameters that you give it. Some more complex APIs require certain like credentials. So if it was one of those APIs that requires you to have an account, you would give it your credentials. It takes this in a URL, and then runs it through this database, verifies you, receives the parameters that you give it, uses those parameters to find what you're asking for, and then gives it back to you, right? So it's a very simple way of requesting information and giving it back to you. So a simple interface for some very complex action. As you hear, it lets you communicate with the kitchen to let them know what we want to eat, right? How do we use APIs? We use it with the URL. Here on the right side, you see a small diagram with some clients, phones, shopping carts, laptops, right? You put in a request, it sends it to the API, and then it grabs the information and then gives it back to you. Whenever you put in a request to an API, it's going to return to you the information that you requested in the form of JSON, right? JSON is JavaScript object notation. Essentially, it is just an object of data. Depending on the API that you're using and the request that you make, it can be a very simple object or a very complex object. If anyone here has ever used the Pokemon API, are you guys familiar with that? You can put in a request of like up to 1,200 Pokemon, not 1,200 Pokemon, right? But within their large library of Pokemons, and you can request stuff from like shiny, types, evolutions, and you can get it back to you in the form of an object. All right, so whenever you think about JSON, just think of an object with key value pairs. So a instructor walkthrough. So we're gonna go ahead and open up our VS Code. You're gonna go to lesson 5, and we're gonna check out the dog photo lesson. Let's open up JavaScript 2. We don't have anything here. It's gonna be up to you guys, but the JavaScript is what really matters. Is there a description before we continue? Yeah. All right. So for this example and how you're gonna speak to the API, this is gonna be the syntax for it. Now, this is a very old method. This is how it used to be done. We're gonna discuss this first before we move on to the more modern way of speaking to an API. But I'm gonna walk you through the syntax. Essentially, we are using the method fetch, and then within this method, you have the URL as we discussed earlier for the API. Right? So you're saying, hey, I want you to fetch me this information. And if we see here, the information that we're giving it is the URL to the dog API. We're going into their breeds. We want to grab an image and then a random one, right? So these are the query parameters that we're giving it. When it goes in there and sends the URL to the API, it's going to grab that information. And then here on the next line, we see the .then method. After it receives the information, I want you to grab that response. That's what RES stands for. And then I want you to parse through it as JSON, right? A JavaScript object notation. Once you receive that JSON data, then I want you to console.log that data. And afterwards, in the event, if there's an error, I want you to catch it and console.log that error, right? That's essentially what this line of code is saying. We're putting a request to the API for a random dog image, convert it into JSON, and then console.log it. And if for whatever reason it fails to do so, I want you to grab that error and then print it out on my console in this string format where it says error and then the type of error that it is. All right. We use the .then because APIs, just like your experience at Texas Warehouse, not everything is instant, right? It has to go and look for that information. So because of that, we use a .then because we are waiting for the information to come back. And once it does come back, then we want to do something with it. And this is important because when you start working with your websites and you start building your applications, if you don't use a form of saying, then, or, it's not working asynchronously, then you're going to have issues where it's not going to load what you're trying to grab from your API. Why? Because typically it takes a little bit for it to happen. It's not instant. You're going to end up refreshing your page and then you're going to see the image or the information you were asking for because you didn't use the .then method or some form of asynchronous method that waited for the response. So the .then eliminates that and it bridges the gap between you and the wait time and allows your browser to wait for the information before displaying it to you. All right. So going back to the dog photo, we're going to open this bad boy up into our live server. Get rid of this. We don't see anything here. And the reason for that is because we don't have anything. All right, we go back to our HTML. We have the body, but within the body, We have an empty image tag with no source and no alternate, so it's not displaying anything. We are linking up our script tag in here, but there's nothing to display. If we go to the inspect our developer tools and you go to the console, you're gonna see something. And you see here that we actually got back an object. Now, why is that? Well, because when you ran it, it has our script, our JavaScript file linked to it, and we open up our JavaScript, we see a bit of code, line 1 through 8. And it actually has that little code snippet that we had on our slides, right? So even though we don't see anything right now, it's still going through the motions. It's running through our code. It goes to line 1. It puts a fetch request towards this API using the dog API link. It gives you the parameters for a read image at random. It grabs the information, and then we're doing console.log, right? Line 4 is what is making this object appear in our console. So let's open this up. All right, so our object, we got back a object with 2 key value pairs, one being a message and one being a status. We see here that the message key value pair, the value is a link or a URL essentially to an image. Well, this is what's gonna be your assignment, right? Let's start you off, and then we'll break off into groups so we work on it. So we have our JavaScript working. We made the request to the API. We have the information, but up to this part, we already have an idea of how to manipulate our HTML. So we have the URL for the image. What is the first step to displaying this image on our browser? Anybody? Very simple. What's up, Sam?
Do you have to write like a line of code that pulls up the image, like whatever it fetches? Like I forgot what it exactly was in HTML, but kind of link it to that. Whatever the fetch thing is.
Kind of, right? So we do have to add some code here. We grab the information. We know that on line 3, it grabs the data, and then after that data, it's printing it out, and we're seeing it printed out on our console. So we can actually use this instead of printing it out. Why don't we use it instead, right? So we can essentially grab the image tag and then manipulate its inner HTML or text, or manipulate a tag itself, right? So we can do document.query selector within this code, and we want to grab our image, right? So we do query selector. We can see here it shows you a small description. Query selector is image. I'm doing this because it doesn't have an ID, but it's fine. We're just doing it once. And then after we grab the image, what do we want to manipulate? We want to add something to our source. So how do we do that? Any guesses? I believe we can do .source. All right, so we can grab the source itself off that tab. We grab the image selector, then we're going to grab the source, and then we're going to equal, or we're going to assign it, part of that data. Well, as we saw earlier, how's that data looking like? Let's comment this out real quick. It's an object, and it has key value pairs. The first key value pair is the message with the URL that we actually want. So someone walk me through this. How would we go about grabbing that information from this object?
You would do equals data, and then I think you could use dot notation for it. If not, you can use parentheses to grab the data dot message.
Yeah, let's try it out. Data dot message. So in theory, we grab that data object, right? We grab this first key, which was message, And then if done correctly, it should give us an image. All right, pretty sweet. Now, it appeared its own because when it first loads, it's going through the code, and right off the bat, it's grabbing that image and placing here. We also, if we remember, our parameters for our URL was random. So in theory, every single time that we refresh this, it should be a random picture. And it is. You saw how it took a little bit? Because not instant, right? Remember, it has to go, it sends the request all the way to this API, and the API has to take the information that you give it, parse through its entire database, look for what you want, and then give it back to you. And that itself is not instantaneous. All right, so there's a slight delay, but if we keep refreshing, we get to see random pictures of a bunch of doggos. I'm looking for a good one.
And I think APIs, they normally tell you how to look for your information, right? Like
Yes.
it'll kind of give you like a README.
This is the one actually, dog.ceo. Yep. It's later in the class, but we can go through it real quick. So if we go to the API that we're actually pinging, right? We're speaking to this API here. Most APIs tend to have some form of documentation. We use the example that they provided here for the curriculum, right? To grab it. And it even shows you here a small description of what it's giving back to you. Typically, all these APIs have the documentation that you can go to. And you can see list of breeds. This is the URL. I didn't just pull this URL out of nowhere, right? I hope you guys know that. I didn't just make up the URL. Like whenever you guys work with APIs, you can go to the API itself, and all APIs, if it's a good API, tends to have documentation for you that allows you to understand how it works. They typically give you small examples and code snippets to get you to understand. Here, this is the URL for getting all breeds, the random image. There we go. All right, so this is the URL we used. We can do by breeds, right? So breed, and then you can actually give the after the breed parameter, they passed a specific breed name, and then images, subbreeds, and then we can actually just go through here and kind of experiment with it. So this is where this information is being received from. Cool. Does that satisfy you, Eric? Thank you for that. Yeah, so this documentation, we're not just pulling all this information out of nowhere. We got this from the API itself, and we just implemented it here. Most APIs, all APIs actually, are going to use some form of URL that are going to take different parameters depending on what you are looking for, right? So your task for right now is to you're gonna go through this the API using the dog photo assignment, and I want you to not let it be random every single time that we refresh the page. I want you to be able to press a button and give it an actual image, right? Experiment with a little bit if you want to, add some different buttons, different categories for breeds, breed lists, whatever you want to do. It's not going to be long because it's a very simple assignment. So we'll do until 7:10. All right, I'm not going to break it up into rooms, just kind of experiment with it, and then working with the code itself. All right, make a button, make a box, right? Get multiple breeds if you want to, get multiple dogs. Try it out. All right, guys, how'd they go? And we got something cool to show? Like a bunch of dogs, something? No? Okay. All right. Cody, yeah? See you on your mic.
No, I mean, I didn't get very far, but just for learning purposes, so I can learn more, might as well just maybe show you guys what I.
Yeah, let's see it.
Okay. All right. You guys see that?
Oh, my bad. I gotta stop sharing. Yeah.
Is that all right? So I mean, I saw what you had, and so I selected 3 breeds, and I went to the breeds list, and I was copying them over, and so I don't know, I just created like the select your breed, put the 3 in there that I selected, and then I tried to remember this, and I think this is where I got caught up. Was this part, this document.query selector,
Mm-hmm.
this add event listener, the click. So just like we did before, which is the click from the previous assignment, and then I had it call this function. Then I was just in the middle of creating the first function. Then I was just going to retype them out. But I'm getting an error here on line 12. You can see on the right side where it says click, which I thought you just put click there.
You do. Let me see.
And so that's where
open up that console. Let me see what it look like.
this here.
Where you're getting the error message. Cannot read properties of add event listener. For line
12.
It's due to capitalization, I think.
Yeah, the click.
On the IDs.
Yeah, you're grabbing the wrong IDs.
Oh, okay. So add ID. So then,
Just capitalize everything.
oh, right here.
Yeah.
Okay,
It'll be all A's.
sweet. And then, okay. And when I just reload, still null. Need to resave this. Yeah. Still doing the click. Is it? I mean, I thought I hit tab for that, but document.query selector. Is that just the wrong syntax?
No, it looks right. Click, and then
Isn't there, and this is a wild guess, but query selector by ID as well? You tried that.
there is, but it should still work.
Yeah.
It's not the query selector. Something isn't typed in right. You're grabbing. Let's see. Let me put in my own VS Code. Let's see. It looks right. Let me see the error message where it was giving you issue with the click.
Right here?
Open it up. Yeah. The elements.
Just click it.
Like make it bigger, please. Add event listener. Click. Why is it not calling out no properties? What the heck? Yo, this is blowing my mind. Do you spell everything right? It's hard to see because it's not it's so zoomed out. You have one of those wide screens, don't you?
Yeah, I have a pretty wide screen.
Is there a way you can make it bigger? I can't see anything. It's so very small.
Yeah, the zoom in. I want to see the app.js one. Are you able to zoom in on that or no?
How do I zoom in on?
Press Control Plus if that works.
Oh, there we go.
More. Okay, let's see. All right. Document.query selector. That's good. Add event listener, click. I can't for the life of me figure out what in the heck is wrong with this.
I mean, it's saying this is void.
So does he have function for African and Akita already?
I have one, yeah.
Maybe
if you
that's what it-
comment those up. If you comment
Yeah.
those up, maybe it'll work because the functions don't really have function for them.
Okay,
I
I
think
see
you
what
would
you mean.
do control. Yeah, I think you would do
Yeah.
control / it comments it.
Okay, sweet.
And I'll try it now.
All right. Nah, just on that one, I'm getting it.
Did you refresh already?
Yeah, I just
Okay.
refreshed it. Yeah. Yep. And I'll save this here.
But what does the error say? Like,
I mean it.
zoom in on that one.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know how to type cannot be properties of
Oh, it's not
all.
letting me. Yeah, cannot read properties of null reading event listener.
So is that attached to a button?
I know it's something stupid, man. I didn't know it is.
Well, it's
So
app
on the
pincher to this one.
So
Oh, go
on
ahead.
the what does it look like on the HTML document?
Over here. This ID. I mean,
can you do click events on list items?
That's something.
I mean, that's what we did. So this is what we did on the bad calculator. And I just copied and pasted it from bad calculator. Well, not copy, I typed it out, right? So document.query selector, add event listener, click, and then the function, right? I mean, it is probably something stupid. I'd hate to take up everyone's time for this. If you know what I mean.
It's driving me crazy. What is it?
Yeah.
It's probably
No idea.
No, it shouldn't be. You didn't use like the backticks, right? I know it's a dumb question, but sometimes when you use the wrong parentheses for stuff.
Oh, I see it. I see it. The li. Wait, no, that's not it. I thought I saw it.
Good
Dang, I
try.
was excited.
Yeah,
I was
What-
too.
You mean the?
I never.
You mean these? I mean, no.
Just try retyping it. I know it sounds dumb, but sometimes when you retype it, Like
Yeah.
it's happened. It's happened to me. Query selector. Use
Okay.
the parentheses, double
Yeah.
parentheses.
And you can copy and paste the ID, just make sure it's spelled correctly
Yeah.
from the HTML.
I know it's a little repetitive to do some of this stuff, but sometimes that's all you need. Delete line 12. Even though I know you just redid it, but just get rid of it. It's still giving you an
Okay.
error.
Nope, it didn't. Yeah, it still picked it up.
What in the heck? It's something.
Me-
Isn't maybe it's a function that's giving you issues. Often pincher fetch.
I mean, I didn't update this yet, but well, yeah, I did. F and pincher.
Just out of curiosity, since everyone always says AI is good at debugging, you want to see if ChatGPT can solve it? Or no? It might.
I actually haven't used Chat GPT for
Oh.
programming yet.
Try. It's actually really helpful. You can always try it out.
Is there like a free Chat GPT?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's
free.
free. Let me see.
Add and listen. I mean, it worked when I did the dog breed or the calculator. You think it is the function?
Maybe if you change the LI to like a button, maybe that will work. Instead of an LI, you just click on LI and type button there.
What do you mean change?
Over in the HTML where LI will for the action picture, yeah, just type button.
Oops.
No, you gotta
Right
just
there.
double click, yeah, type button.
That.
You need to close it
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, I gotta go over the other side too.
Make sure you close the left one too. It's still open. It requires another caret on the first button.
Where?
It's closed. No, the
Oh,
ID.
oh, my
Sorry.
bad, my bad. I thought my bad.
Okay.
You're right.
Yeah, just delete those.
It's still in
It's the
an order list.
click. And then it's highlighting this.
I think this is what happens when you copy and paste. Like it just gets confusing.
Yeah.
I just copy and paste this.
I mean, it could be the function. I mean, did I do the function correct? Function F and pincher. This doesn't matter. Do I need to return anything? I don't think I have to. I just added that.
No, you don't have to return anything. Do the catch error.
What's that?
Do the catch error. So
Oh,
afterwards,
you have the JavaScript above it. Should be at the bottom of the body. So at line 21, put that down to where line 30 is. Over in the HTML.
For this?
Yeah, just cut that whole line and put it where
Mhm.
line 30 is, right above body.
Yeah, that was why we were using the async
Jesus.
tag earlier, right?
There you go. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's check it. Hold on, Butte.
Yo, good
It's
eye,
okay.
Mikhail.
Yeah. All right. Hold on, sweetie. All right. I mean, is that okay? Yeah. Right. I guess that
Yeah,
fixed
that's
that.
working. It doesn't find the breed, but it's working though. It's the wrong
Okay.
parameters. But
Yeah.
your stuff is working. But you have to fix the way you're fetching that. But so far it's working.
Okay. All right. Sweet. Well, thank you. That's and then I'll just copy everything for African and Akita.
Yeah.
And that's my code.
All right. Before we move forward,
Yeah. So.
I'll put you guys in break. That way you guys can take 10 minutes, decompress, and then we'll continue on. All right.
Sweet. All right. Thanks,
All right.
guys.
Yeah, thanks, Cody. Appreciate that. That was a good time for us to kind of just look at code. All right, let's come back. All right, so where we left off, on the dog photo assignment, we're gonna keep picking up from here. Next, so fetching request response. You're gonna open up your dev tools. We already went through this and checking out the object pairs or key value pairs that you guys get back, essentially JSON. You guys got to experiment with that firsthand. And then the actual assignment, we already went through it. So displaying the random dog photo you get from the API on your DOM. And every time the page loads, you should get a new picture. Yep. So what is happening every time you refresh the page? As you saw before, every time you refresh it, it goes through your HTML, reads the script, goes into your JavaScript file, and read through your code. And before you guys added the button, there was, it was automatic, right? It put in the request, went to the API. It took the request you guys put in with the parameters that you guys had. It went through its database. It looked for what you requested for, depending on the parameters, searched for the documentation, found what you asked for, and then returns it back to you in the form of data, in a response, which you then went through, parsed through it, made it into JSON, and then went into the JSON object itself, and then grabbed the URL for your image. Pretty straightforward. So querying parameters, you guys also get to do some of that firsthand. Here we see a different API that's being used. This time it is the Cocktail DB database. They're, pinging the API, it's JSON. They're searching through. It's a different format what the dog API was. At the very end, it takes the type of cocktail you're asking for, and this one is margarita. Goes through the same concept as the other one did. Uses the .then method, waits for its response, receives the response, parses through it as JSON, and then we console.log, and obviously we went to the .catch as well to grab any error that might occur. Here we see what does it look like? What do we get back from this response? It's different from the dog one, right?
This is an array of objects.
Yeah, it's an object with key value pairs, and the value from the first key that we have is an array. And within this array, it's an array of objects. And we have each object itself has a key value pair as well, with the value being another object within it, holding the ID of the drink. That's how they use their API to number all their drinks, and then the drink itself, right? And it's essentially an array of all forms of margaritas. So when you guys start working with all different types of APIs, they're not going to be as simple as a dog one, where you got a message and a status. Some of these are going to be very, very complex, right? It's going to be objects within objects, within arrays, within objects. And it's going to be up to you to be able to parse through all the data that you're receiving to capture what you're looking for, right? Query parameters continued. Here they added the martini, and we see another array here within the object. This one's 9, but it grabbed all the martinis. So you're going to work with the cocktail database in the next one. And let's check it out. Let's close this up. Open up the cocktails. And live server. So here is what we have so far. Let's check out the HTML. We have the H1 header, which cocktail with the input, and then the button. All right, below that we have another H2, an image tag that's empty with no source, and instructions below that with nothing to follow. At the very end, we have the script tag. As you guys just experienced through Cody, this should be the last thing in your body or have it in your head, right? And we saw how it can impact it. He was trying to essentially use JavaScript to manipulate the list, but the list was outside of the HTML body scope, right? It got to the list. It tried to read the JavaScript, which wasn't linked yet, which was causing that issue. You're going to write the code that will allow the user to enter a cocktail and have the DOM render the name, photo, and instructions on how to make it on the button click. So far, what does it look like right now? Let's go ahead and add Martini. And it does nothing. What does the console give me? The console, open up, it gives us an object. So that's telling me that in the JavaScript, at least, it's doing something. So in the JavaScript, we at least have a Boulder template so far of it talking to the API and looking for the margarita. But it seems to be pretty, what's the word I'm looking for? It does not allow you the freedom to input anything and grab what you put in input. It's just straight set to margarita, no matter what you do, right? So no matter how many times I press the button doesn't work. It's not taking any input. Every time that I refresh this page, it's running through the JavaScript, and it's just automatically grabbing margarita. So back to the assignment, you guys are going to make the button work, be able to take an input from the user and render the name, photo, and instructions in their respective fields, and have it work. Simple enough. Awesome. We're gonna break off the teams. We'll work on this till like 8. If it looks like you guys might need more time, I might push it 10 minutes to the right. So if I don't close the rooms at 8, then you know why, because it seems to be that people might be struggling. So we'll keep it like this for now. We'll open the rooms and we'll do individual work so I can go one by one and help you guys out if you need it. Create. How many are we? Okay, let's open all the rooms up. Welcome back. I saw a lot of confused faces while doing this. So although I did give you guys time to try to work on it, we're gonna go ahead and code along together so we can get rid of any kind of confusion. I will give a quick disclaimer. I have not done this in like 4 months. So we'll work it out together, all right? So back to the code. And while looking at the JavaScript, I mentioned one thing, right? So far, what we have, the boilerplate, it's a fixed boilerplate, right? It's a fixed search. Every time that we refresh this page, it's making an API call and it's grabbing the margarita, right? So this is fixed, right? It's hard-coded in here, but that's not what we want. We want to be able for the user to put in input within our search bar and then press get cocktail and grab what he needs, right? Right now, it's fixed. He doesn't have that ability. So we need to change that up a little bit, right? So how do we do that? Well, we want to be able to put some input in here, grab that input, and then press this button. And then once we press that button, then we want to do our API call.
I'm not seeing your screen again.
Oh, my bad. Thank you, Cody. You're the one that saves us every single time. Can you guys see my screen now? All right, sweet. Okay, so looking at the cocktails HTML, I want to be able to grab this button. I'm sorry, not grab this, but I want to grab the input, right? Every time that I click this button. So let's go ahead and add a quick ID here. Grab cocktail, or let's just say grab input to ensure everyone knows where we're at, right? Let's go ahead and comment this out real quick. And I'm going to do, I'm gonna give an on click to this button. So we're gonna do document dot query selector. Grab, what did I call it? Man, I forgot. Grab input. We're gonna do grab input. And I want to do add event listener, right? Because I want to listen for the click. And then in here, whenever I click this button, I need to do something, right? So we're gonna create a function. We're gonna call this grab cocktail. All right, pretty simple. Then we're going to define it. So function grab cocktail. And here we want to do something. All right, so far so good. This button needs to be able to receive the input from the input tag and then run line 1 through 8. So let's go ahead and do let drink equals document dot query selector. And I want to grab the input. There is no ID in here. We can just grab input, but just for the sake of it, I'm just gonna give it an ID. Search. Whatever. We're gonna grab whatever it's in the search. So query selector, let's grab ID search. And then I want to grab the value, right? So whenever I press this button, I should be able to grab the value of whatever is inputted into this input tag, right? And just to be sure, so far it's working, let's go ahead and print out drink in our console. So we can say martini. I always misspell it. Whatever. Grab cocktail. It says of no properties, add event listener.
You need the hashtag for grab input.
Oh, my bad. Rookie mistake. There you go. Martini. Big cocktail. All right. So it's grab it. Thanks, Cody, for that. Appreciate it. So we grab the input from the input tag. So far, that's working splendid. Now that we have whatever the user is trying to query, we need to be able to add that to our fetch, right? Because before, this was hard coded in here, margarita. We don't want margarita. So inside of here, we're going to do fetch, and then we're going to do backticks because we're going to want to do some string interpolation. We're going to put our URL all the way up to the equal sign. And then we're going to add in whatever drink is. Okay. So whatever comes out of that value is being saved to this variable called drink. And then we're adding that to our URL as our query parameter. And we're going to do everything else that comes afterwards. Like before. All right, so everything else stays the same, except that we change what fetch was. All right, so we should still be able to do .did, grab the response, parse in JSON, and then grab the data, and then console.log that data, right? And if it goes well, it should give us what we're looking for, right? we see here we got a drink, open it up. Drinks. There we go. Martinis. Boom, baby. Look at how that worked. All right. So far so good. We're grabbing the input on the command of the button. And then once we grab that information, we put it into our fetch and we grab whatever that customer, that user is requesting from us. Right. So that's working. But now we actually want to do something with the name and instructions, right? What was we have to use enter cocktail and have the DOM render the name, photo, and instruction on how to make it on the button click. So we want, we have the input tag, we did that, the button. But here we have an H2 tag for name, an image tag, and an H3 tag with instructions. So let's go ahead and get the name first. So we can do, let's look at the data that we got. We got back an object. And let's just slowly start going through this as we start parsing through the data. So we go data.drinks, it gets us the array, cool. And then we have a variety of martinis. So let's just get the very first one. Martini, so we grab the first one, and that's that. It gives us all the information of that one martini. So it gives us the drink name, which is under the key value pair of string drink and martini. Then as we go through here, let's see, we got the name. Now we need an image. We see here string drink thumb might be what we're looking for. It seems to be an image JPEG. So we're gonna try that one. There's also videos here, but we don't want the video. So this should be here. Will be our drink data is equal to data.drinks, and then we grab the first one. Oh, I still want to see what I'm doing. So I'm just gonna go ahead and there's the other ways we can do this too, but just for the sake of getting an explanation, something on our screen. We got drinks. I also want to grab the name, right? So drink name is going to equal to data, drink data. Oh God, Jesus. What was it? I'm sorry. I'm very forgetful. We want to grab for the name, it's gonna be string drink. And for the image, it's gonna be string drink thumb. Okay, cool. So drink data dot string drink image is equal to drink data dot string drink thumb. And then let's just see that I get I misspelled them. Let's see that one more time. Because I'm forgetful. We have string drink thumb, and then the instructions is string instructions. There's even a, I don't know what language this is, but we just want the first one. String instructions. So drink instructions is equal to drink data dot string instructions. Okay. Now let's go ahead and see if these bad boys come out. We're gonna say drink data, drink name, and drink instructions. Okay. So we see here we're still grabbing the whole where is this coming from? We have Martini, the instructions, but what else is being printed out here? Online 21. Oh, my bad. I did drink data. Drink name, drink image. There we go. Oops. Okay, yeah. So we see here, we got the name, the image URL, and the instructions of how to do this. So now that we have the information, I don't need this console.log. Now we can actually manipulate the rest of our tags, right? So we're gonna want to grab let's do the H2 tag first. We're gonna say document dot query selector. Let's say H2 dot inner text is equal to drink name. Is that working? Yeah. But that's not, is that what we want? Do we want to change the name to Martini, or what should we do? We can do something like name is equal to drink name. Let's try that. Jeez, I'm good. All right, drink Martini. All right, my name. Let's do the image right below that. So the image doesn't have anything yet. So we have that bad boy done. Let's go document dot query selector. Let's do image dot source is equal to drink image, and document dot query selector. We want to grab the instructions, the H3 dot inner text is equal to, for simplicity purposes, we'll just keep it like this, to drink instructions. Now, if we did this the correct way, we should be able to do Martini, get cocktail, and voila. Cool? Sam, I see you laughing. You good?
Yeah, that was a lot, but
You think so? Any questions? Anyone want me to like explain why I did something, or how I did it, or thought process, or anything like that? I had a lot of confused people in these breakout rooms, man. Ask your questions.
Can you just go over the whole thing?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and do a slight review of what just happened, right? So let's copy this. And let's go ahead, go all the way back. And copy and paste that there. And then let's do this right here. All right, so I saw some people try to use the JavaScript outside of a function. So why is that not good? Who can explain to me why having the JavaScript by itself the way it is now, not the right way of doing things? Besides the person that did it. Well, when your file runs, the first thing it's going to do once it gets to the script tag, it's going to run your JavaScript, right? Well, we want to have this the fetch and all that, the API call within a function. It only has to run when it needs to run, and that's when we press the get a cocktail button, right? For those of you that were putting the API request outside of a function and you were getting issues, well, it's because you were trying to do some string interpolation. You're saving the input into like a variable called alcohol, right? And then you're trying to put it into the JavaScript, but it never received the input by clicking the button. It was automatically running, but there was no information for it to receive because the variable was by itself, right? So the first thing I had to do was, kind of comment out Margarita, comment out everything from the fetch request, and think about what the intent of the assignment was. And starting from the top, I knew I had to be able to add something into the search bar, right? And then I need to be able to grab that information out of the search bar upon my request, which is the click of a button. And then with that information, I should be able to put in my API call, right? So that's why the first thing I did right off the bat was I had to set up something for my button to work, right? I want to make sure my button can do something. And once it's doing something, then I can actually work with the rest. So we did the query selector. We added an event list to the button so we can click it. And then we had a function. So whenever that button is clicked, then we want to put in the request to the API call, which is why within the grab cocktail function, we're grabbing the value from the input tag, right, on line 13. We grab the value and then we saved it into a variable called drink. And then we concatenated that variable into our string, our URL string, which will be going into our API call, right? And only then can I put in a request to the API call, right? It shouldn't be running without a function. It shouldn't be running without any kind of input because I'm just going to get an error, right? So once I grab the information from the drink, I put in the API call, and it gave me back, as we know, a JSON formatted object, and I need to be able to parse through that data. So we went in there. We got the first key value pair it had, which is drinks. So we did the data.drinks. Obviously, it was a huge list of different martini types. If you wanted to get a little bit more specific to what martini you want, we can make it more complex. But for simplicity terms, I just kept it at the first index, which is 0. I grabbed that one, and then from there, I parsed through that data. I grabbed the name, the image URL, and the instructions. Now, once I have that data, then I can start adding it to my different elements, right? And that's what I did right afterwards. I went through and I added it onto the H2 image and H3 tags, and that was it, Cool? No other questions? All right. Well, we don't have too much time, so we're gonna go ahead and just push forward so we can end the day. But that should conclude the cocktails.html. Make your app work with the drink Moscow Mule. We can do this. You guys want to give this a try and call it a night?
I mean, I feel like if I go into a breakout room right now, I'm just gonna stare at my screen. So
All right. Dang. And the next one's pretty cool too. Pokemon. Everyone loves Pokemon. All right, so let's see. What does the Moscow Mule look like? Cocktails database. Anytime now. Sorry, my kid's watching Netflix, so it's going pretty slow. Moscow Mule. I wonder if it gives me browse drinks. Let's check out what the Moscow Mule looks like. There's a lot of drinks, man. trash. Doesn't even tell me how. Margarita. Okay. All right. Well, we'll just skip that. We'll continue moving forward. All right. So, an introduction to Postman. So, Postman is who's heard of Postman before? Maybe Mikhail? You seem pretty good with this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I got the Moscow Mule working. Yeah, I
Okay.
heard
Wow.
Postman for.
Yeah. So,
Mhm.
Postman allows you to test APIs very quickly without having to write any code. You're going to use Postman a lot during the immersive program. So let's go ahead and take a couple minutes. Do me a favor and download it because you're going to need it anyways for the immersive program. And we're going to get a small little introduction. And I can show you guys how it works. Let me open up mine. All right. While you guys get Postman set up, I'm going to go ahead and cover real quick. So Postman allows you to do everything that we just did with JavaScript to ping the cocktail and the dog API, but within its own application without having to write any code, without having to do the fetch, without having to do the dance, having an HTML document, open up live server and see all that stuff. It lets you do all this stuff with no code at all. And we're gonna use the dog API as actually now we'll use the cocktail API. If you guys are looking at my screen, it's gonna bring you to something very similar like this. I'll just start a whole new one. I have the blackout version because the bright mode is a sin in software development. But this is what your Postman is gonna look like. It might look a little intimidating at first. Here on the top, we have a little search bar that allows you to input the URL in the same manner that you would during your JavaScript to make an API request. On the left side, we have different options, which you guys will get into later. But essentially, up to this point, the type of request we're making was a GET request. There are different types of requests you can make, as you see here through this drop-down window, but we're only sticking to GET request right now. And a GET request is, explained by the name, allows you to get some information from an API, right? So you simply input the URL you're looking for. We're gonna say martini for this one. We'll keep it simple, or margarita. Yeah, martini, right? The same manner that we did. It typically pre-fills out the parameters for you. If it knows if it's like a real API, it kind of has it reads through your URL and it knows like the URL language of how it's like broken down into different sections. So it knows that it has to pre-fill out the key. The key is S, which typically stands for search. And then afterward, for searches, you typically have an equal sign in your search you're looking for. And you can just press send. And down here, it will show you the response that you would get from the API you're trying to ping. So the same thing that we did with code and checked in our console, you can do it through Postman without having to write any type of code. All right, we can see here we get the drinks, and it has the pretty much the entire object. We can see different ways of seeing it. If you guys, I don't know if it's like an extension to it, but if you press the pretty, it formats it for you where it's readable and it's not a bunch of jargon like you saw earlier. Right? It's nice and formatted so you're able to kind of look at the nest of information within like the objects and the arrays and whatnot. All right, very similar to how your console displayed it as well. We can even do other stuff like margarita, right? And it works for all APIs. Let's check out the dog API. I'm gonna copy this and go back to my Postman. It's gonna be significantly smaller as you guys saw before. Send, and same thing as before. If you guys remember from the dog API, it gave us back just a message and a status, right? All APIs different. Some have more information than others. This one is pretty straightforward. We can check out another one, which you guys will see in 8-bit working with the Pokemon API. But there is the Poke API, which brings you to this website, and it allows you to try it out. Let's go ahead and copy clipboard, go to Postman, add it in here, and send. And it goes to the Poke API and gives you the information. Right? We have a JSON response, abilities, the names of the abilities, are they hidden abilities, base experience, forms, game indices, what else? Height of the Pokemon. So all the data you can you would like to know about Pokemon, if you want to, you can find in the Poke API, right? And it gives you all the information. Even a nice little image moves, right? So transform, learned at level 1. But pretty much you guys get the point, right? The Postman application allows you to test different APIs, whether they're already established or what you're going to be using it for during the immersive program, to test your own APIs that you guys will be building. Pretty cool. All right.
Hey, Roger.
What's up, brother?
Hey, how do we know if the API doesn't work? Did I miss something? Like what? Like how would you know if it doesn't work or?
You won't get a response back, or it's gonna be some like error. Yeah, it'll be like some kind of 404 error, like HTTP 404 error not found. There'll be errors. If there's issue with the API, it'll give you an error message.
Gotcha. Thank you.
No problem, brother.
Hey, Rod, you said it was their key value pairs. So what? How do you know what all the keys are? So, I mean, for Pokemon, I figured it'd be by name, right? But I've seen in there, there's like tons of different things.
Yeah. So here we have the start of our JSON object, right? We know it's an object because it's a curly bracket, right? And the first item that comes after that curly bracket typically is a key. So the first key is abilities. And then we see the colon. And then the value that comes after it is an array, right? And this goes down all the way up to right here. So that is the first key value pair abilities. And then up to here. Oh, I'm right. Yeah. And then we see the comma here. So that's the first key value pair abilities, and then the abilities it has. And then it goes to the next key value pair, base experience, with a value of 101, comma. Then the next key value pair, cries, with a value of an object, right? The one prior to this was an array, but this one's an object, which holds key value pairs, one being latest, with a value of some kind of URL. The next key value pair is legacy, with another URL, and then it branches back out to the next key value pair. So it's just kind of like seeing how it nests within itself. You know, also the lines kind of help you. Like this is the top level, right? So abilities, it starts right here on this line. So the next one on this top level is base experience, and then cries, and then forms, game indices, right? The values to those are on the next line, and so on and so forth. So the lines kind of help you. So this is at least, it's nested at least like twice, right?
Okay, yeah, okay, that makes a lot. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. It can get difficult, especially when you guys first start off trying to read like, objects, and then especially when the objects have arrays as values, and then those arrays have objects as values, and those objects have arrays as values. Like it starts nesting deeper and deeper, so it can get a little confusing, which is why they have it on this format, like the pretty format, to allow you to read it more effectively, right? Cool. It was that Postman. You can check it out, try it yourself. But besides that, I just want to make sure you guys had it, you've seen it, and you know what it looks like and how to work it before you guys get to the immersive program. They'll go over it with you, but it won't be the first time you see it. All right, testing an API with Postman. We just went over that. All right, so newish API syntax. So before, right, when we started off our lesson today, I mentioned to you guys that the previous way or the way that we're doing it was the old way of doing it, right? It's not that it's wrong, but there's a much better and efficient way of doing it these days, right? And that syntax is what you see here. Now, the reason we did it the other way was to let you know that there's other ways of doing it in case you ever run into it. Different places that you're going to work are going to have, some people might have outdated code, and different ways of coding. But this seems to be the more standard version these days. Let's walk through the syntax real quick. On the line, we have your typical query selector. It's grabbing the button and adding an event listener, right? Pretty standard, just adding an event listener to a button with a function called getFetch, right? And then they declare this function down here. But you see something different, right? It says async. Async is the more modern version of using the .then, right? By adding async prior to the declaration of the function, you're telling your browser, right, that it has to wait after the API call is made, right? Before, we had to use the .then method. Here, we don't do that. By adding async, you're pretty much saying the exact same thing, right? It's asynchronous. What that means is the moment it gets something, it refreshes your browser, right? If you didn't have async or the .then, and you load up your browser and it's supposed to immediately make an API call, it won't refresh your browser and show you the real world change at that moment. Does that make sense? So the async makes it asynchronous, allows you to kind of make your browser dynamic in a sense, right? Here we see the async function fetch, right? Nothing really changing besides the fact that we're adding async. They did something very similar to what we did, right? We grabbed the value out of the input tag here on this next line. So they grabbed the value and assigned it to the variable called choice. And then they concatenated that string that's assigned into choice into their URL, right? And instead of just adding it straight to the fetch, they just added an extra step and saved it inside of a variable, right? No big change here. Don't get confused with that. After that, they created a variable called data. Like they manually created that variable called data, and they added the await, right? Await is same thing as using .then. Await the fetch of this URL, right? So whenever it gets to the let data equals, it's going to go into await fetch URL. It makes that API call, and it will not move on until it receives feedback, right? And then it assigns it to the data variable. After that, it gets to let Pokemon info, await the data.json, allowing it to parse through the data that it receives, and then you're able to use the data, right? Everyone good with me? If you wanted to simplify this, you could have gotten rid of all of this line right here, the URL line. You could have gotten rid of that and then just manually inputted the URL in here with the whatever was assigning to choice, right? You could have done that, simplified in that manner, but this is the newish way of doing your API calls in comparison to how we did it earlier. And this is how you're gonna be doing it from here on out, right? The way we just did it, you're never gonna do it, not even in the immersive program. It's just to show you how it works. But if you did it the way before, this shouldn't be too hard because it's very similar. The next one, unfortunately, we do not have time for this right now. I'd like to really give you guys some time to go through it, me walk through the rooms and help you guys out. Just so you guys have an idea of what you're looking at tomorrow. Your right code is asked so that on the bottom click, the H2 name element changes to Pokemon search. You're gonna be looking for the Pokemon, grabbing images. And it's pretty cool because I like to look for like the legendary Pokemons. So you guys get to like mess around with that. In the immersive program, you're gonna build a Pokemon team, which is pretty cool. But yeah, so this will be tomorrow. We're gonna end it here. So I do not want to start this next assignment and not have enough time to go over it. But before we end for the day, does anybody have any questions about anything that was covered? Okay. So we do have a little bit of time left. I will stay here behind and answer any questions. But besides that, thank you all for today and your cooperation, and I will see you guys tomorrow.